All right. I do believe we are live over on Facebook. So, welcome everyone. We are all here. Chris and I say all. Well, Chris and I are here to talk about when midlife means misalignment to an old identity and maybe to an old business relationships as they have been. So, Chris,
Hello.
you're here to talk about it all, yeah?
Yes, we are. We're here because life has really led us to this point. And I think it's something very beautiful. And I know if people have been following and just tuning in to both you and I over time, I think what we've shared over time has really allowed people to see how our relationship, our own individual paths have led to a beautiful connection, a beautiful path where we've supported one another in this transition that we'll share with everyone, and also an invitation that comes after that.
I love it. I was actually thinking and kind of cracking up because I wasn't supposed to meet you. I had the project you were in and a part of, I had passed on to someone else. And then I remember this one day, Derek woke up and he was like, this project is, I just have a bad feeling about it. It's not going well. You need to pop in there. You need to show your face. You need to drop a message. And I was not happy about that. I was I was pretty grumpy. I was kind of foul to be around at that time. And I was thinking, I thought I delegated this. And now I'm so grateful for it because that's how I met you. I popped
Yeah.
in and then, you for one of the reasons I love you, you can, stepped in the conversation and here we went and we haven't stopped talking for 2 years.
We really haven't. And we've only stopped for the holidays or on
Yeah.
the weekends because we very much respect our weekends and holidays. But it's been an evolution, and we've talked about it. And I can, piggyback on that. That once you stepped in, it was like, okay, all right, here's someone new. Let me just, feel into your energy. And then I decided to do another project with Alma Publishing. And that one was another one that it's like, okay, well, are you going to go this way? Or are you going to go this way? Which path are you going to pick? And I chose to stay with my commitment and continue down the path with Alma Publishing to publish Latinas Rising. And really, I think that's when our relationship got a little bit more closer, because now there was a book to come out and I never published a book. And so that lended itself for us to be in more communication, and that led to me working with you, hiring you as a mentor to guide me on something that I'd never done before. And again, I'm so grateful that we're here today, because the path that we've been on over the last 2 years just evolved over time. And it's not anything that was planned. Um, and it's nothing that I could have planned or anticipated. It just is.
Absolutely. And one of the messages I sent you just in the last couple of days, I said, I now realize you were sent into my life and we connected really, I think, to help each other navigate a season of life we didn't even know was hitting us. We didn't know what was happening at the time. And that's what I've learned about this season of life. You don't know what's going on for a while. And then you look back and you go, oh, that's what was happening. Oh, that's why I felt that way. That's why I couldn't maintain that. That's why I was feeling itchy. That's why I, you know,
Yes.
decisions, dropped things. Now we can see it.
Now we can see it. And I think this reminds me so much of one of my favorite quotes that says, you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back, and know that somehow they're going to connect. And this is that. And it's been that all along. And so I would just love to get into the conversation a little bit more and share with others a little bit of what that transition was for us, what it looked like, because we were both going through a change in our life, not just a personal change, but a career change for me, for you, and how you were choosing to do business. So we lived two completely different lives. Like nothing about us was similar,
Yeah,
nothing.
so true.
Yet we somehow went on this journey together and supported one another through this transition, I think without even realizing what we were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to make a point right there. I know we're going to go into this more maybe in another conversation, that doing this alone, doing this without you would have felt very different than doing it with you. And I can't tell you how many times I would think, thank God Criss is on the other end of that WhatsApp, little button, because I would have not shared any of this with anyone. I wasn't used to doing that. I was, and actually, my husband said something this morning. He said, "You're really good at hiding when you're having a hard time." And you know what I said? You're right, I am. I've mastered that. No one would ever have known. And you were the only person that knew. And I am super grateful for that. And I don't want other women to go through it alone, because it's rough. It can be rough and it can be scary. So let's talk about where you were. Where were you when, what was going on in your life? When did you know things had to change? What, from first half to second half, what was going on? What was that mental?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to keep it short, I was at a point in my life where I knew I had to pivot. I knew I had to change something because the life that I was living, the path that I was on, was so misaligned with the version that I was at that moment that I knew something had to change. Otherwise, it would lead to more bitterness, more frustration, more anxiety, just a path that I had worked so hard to get to. I'd
Mhm.
worked so hard up to that point to live a life that felt more aligned with me. And as I was doing that, it led to that exact point that said, it's time for you to step out of your 20-year corporate career. 20 years in human resources, that's all I knew. That's all I had ever done in my professional career. And now life was literally pulling me a different direction. Yes, by that time, I'd already received multiple certifications as a coach and a life coach and a this coach and a that coach. But it was that moment of it's now or it's now.
It's happening.
It's happening. And I remember we had already been in conversation. We were already in that WhatsApp channel. And I said, I'm doing this. I just put in my 2 week notice. And at that time, I'm going to say you were probably one of the only people that knew. My husband, of course, my kids didn't know. My parents didn't know. Nobody in my circle knew that I had what I was about to do. So when you say, you're good at hiding, the tough, or, when life is difficult, in a way, I'm pretty good at that too, because people have said to me that I just make it look so easy, but it has not been easy whatsoever. So that's where I was. That was my first half. That then led to me leaving my 20-year corporate career to pivot and step right into the unknown, something I had zero experience in, which was entrepreneurship. And where were you?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was when we began to realize, oh my gosh, we look very different on the outside in our past experience, but we were stepping into the unknown and the scary next. I don't know what this is. I just know, like you said, it's pulling me. Then we realized, oh yeah, we're kind of doing the same thing. So, like you, I was doing the thing I knew. I was running a business. We were at the prime time, the peak of our business. The number of clients that would come in a day, in a week, in a month, and just it was moving so fast. It was so full. It was everyone's dream. Every entrepreneur prays for this moment when you hit that like bell curve and it's like, you just wake up and stand up straight and you have, 2 dozen payment notifications coming in a day. And I was on my own call. I was facilitating a networking event and I was on my own call. And I was like, I don't want this. This thing I had spent 15, 16 years at that time building, I didn't want anymore. And I shocked myself. And I was embarrassed to even think that because it was like, wow, this is what everybody wants. This is what you said you wanted. Are you ungrateful? Are you crazy? Are you losing your mind? What do you mean you don't even want this? And just recently in the last week or two, I can look back at that me and be like, wow, you did it. You were brave because I I even regretted the decision of stepping out of my own business, stepping out as CEO. I would go back and forth between I did what I knew I wanted to do. I regret doing that. I let people down. I disappointed people. I confused people. I pissed people off. I would go back and forth about this. And recently I was just like, no, I like you, it didn't feel like there was another choice. It was this or this. This was not up for debate. It wasn't up for discussion. I didn't discuss it. I didn't discuss it with Derek. It was like, this isn't a discussion. I can't go on like this. And I didn't know why at the time. Didn't know
Mm.
why. And I recently saw a reel and a lady was talking about why most divorces and affairs happen between 45 and 55. And she said it's not because women are looking for something new or because they like somebody else more than the one that they're with, but they want to be with someone who doesn't know the old version of them.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that just hit me like a ton of bricks because when this moment in your life happens, there is a death. You have a sense that
Mhm.
your life is not going to be the same. You can't be that version anymore. I intellectually, like, I could tell you what it takes to do what I did before, but I actually can't. I can't do it and I can't make myself do it. That old me is gone.
Okay, that part that you just said. You can't do it and you cannot make yourself do it. That is the feeling that I have when I think of my corporate career. And I'm often reminded because, I worked at a transportation company and they're everywhere. Everywhere you look, there they are. We're on a flight, last week, and I told America, my husband, I was like, "Do you miss working there?" No. I don't either because my husband and I worked at the same corporation. Different roles completely, but I look today and I have never for a moment looked back and regretted the decision. It has not looked anything like what I thought it would look like at
No.
all. And that's something that has got to be talked about, whether it's today or another time, because it's never going to look like what you think. I had a plan. I had
We
a
love
business
plans.
plan, I had the vision of what I wanted it to look like. I had, of course, a financial plan. That's super important. I'm never going to tell anybody, quit your job if you don't have a financial plan in place. But it was that belief that this is going to work because it's going to work. And I'm grateful that I have a husband that probably had more of a belief in me than I even did in myself in that moment. But that first half of life, of whatever you want to call it, led to this point where it was like you pivot, or you're just going to really live in this misery of you're happy, but you're really not happy. You're pretending like you're happy because, stepping away and stepping into the unknown is scarier. So I'm just going to make myself believe I'm happy and I'm going to, enjoy those happy moments because it's not like misery all the time, right? It's just moments of it, but I didn't want that. And so I'm grateful for having somebody to walk that journey with me, which happened to be you unknowingly, right? Because it
Right.
went from that first half, I don't know about you, that first half of just really overachieving and doing all the things and the mother and the corporate job and the kids and in my space and in my field of work, human resources, you're always available for everyone else. We operated 24/7, which meant if I had to do something in the middle of the night, I had to do something in the middle of the night because that was my role. And so I almost went through like a detox, if I'm being totally honest with you,
I remember.
where I stepped away. I stepped out of corporate to go into coaching and mentoring and doing all the things. And that's the last thing I wanted to do. I just needed time to redesign my life from the inside out. Step into me, into my power, recognizing and acknowledging the version of myself today without anyone judging me, without anyone telling me anything, which is part of the reason why women do this on their own, why it's so quiet, because you don't want to be criticized, you don't want to be talked about, you don't want somebody judging you, you don't want all these things. So therefore, you just keep it to yourself. You don't share it with anyone because, oh my gosh, you know,
Yep.
I'm now not the good mother. I went from being the breadwinner to not being the breadwinner. And what are people going to say? Which is really dumb when I think about it now because I don't really care overall what people think, but apparently I did care. And there's a certain part that you always care whether you realize it or not. To what degree? That's different. But this moment was probably what led us to where we're at today, right? Of saying, you know what we've just gone through is life altering because it really was. And so many women do it alone. So many women are afraid to take that next step because they don't know what it's going to look like. They're afraid to step away of the life that they know because it's so scary to not know what the other side looks like. What is that other half going to look like? So they don't do it. And instead, they stay where they're at. And I think there's something very powerful to be said when you have somebody who is there for you. We were somehow walking the same journey, but completely different. But
And
wait,
that's what I love.
right.
You didn't, we didn't have to fit into a mold. We could just be who we were and the stage we were, and we just listened to each other.
Yes.
We,
And and I think that's actually what ended up creating a friendship, I think, because it was just business, business, business. But then in between the business was like, oh my gosh, this happened. I had this breakthrough. And I mean, I'm sure I cried many times and during messages that I sent you because it was something that just came through. And so this conversation is very important because I don't wish that upon anyone. And when you start talking to people, there are so many women that are going through this, right? Doing it alone. But you don't have to do it alone. We're here to listen to ourselves, to listen to our bodies, to listen to our higher self, to listen to all those voices inside that we tend to ignore and only listen to the ones that are like not productive and beneficial. But we're here to journey together. And at some point, you have to recognize that inner voice and say, you know what? I don't want to do this alone. I want to be able to grow and expand and connect with other women that are going through this same journey that I really have no words to put into it because I feel like I'm the only one that's going through this because I'm looking around me and there's no one else who is trying to quit their corporate career or at least is taking it serious because everything is just about complaining in the conversations, but I'm actually gonna do something and I look around me and there's no one that's doing it.
That's it exactly. And what's happened through our conversations, you came to me and said, "Hey, I have this idea. What if we did something together? What if we talked about our journey, what we've been through the last couple of years, and we said, hey, we this is what's happening. I mean, we can pretend it's not happening, but it's happening. You don't feel the same. You don't have the same priorities. You can't continue as you have been. But like you said, you don't know what's on the other side. We all love the devil we know more than the devil we don't. I get that. We feel the weight and the responsibility of continuing to be who we were. And we wanted to open up a space, a room, and a conversation that says, you're not crazy. You're not making this up. You're not failing yourself. You're not failing anyone. And you might not recognize yourself. Your husband
Mhm.
might not recognize you. Your kids might not recognize you. Your clients might not recognize you. And that's okay. That's the point. That's the point of this time of life is you let go of one identity and you build another. That's the whole reason for this pause. And we want to be able to approach it from all the angles. Criss, on what alignment feels like, what it doesn't, what happens when we fight against that, right? When we try to keep soldiering on when we know we're done. Talking about how do we reduce our stress levels? How do we build an environment and a business, a career, a marriage, a family that supports the season we're in because it's different. We need different things and we have to be able to know what's going on inside and out. What are different ways of approaching business? There's a million different business models. I did it in the most high touch way humanly possible, and I can't do that anymore.
Right.
And so I've explored all these other ways, and what do you know, there's like a million ways to do this, right? And understanding that we have choices and you can customize it for you. It's not a one size fits all. You don't have to do what Criss did or I did or how anyone else did it, but we're here to go, hey, these are things you can consider. With is a place you can talk about it. Let's build it, even though it's scary, even though it's unknown, even though you aren't sure completely of what you're feeling or knowing or sensing right now. We'll walk in the dark with you because we've already walked in the dark together.
Yes. And you bring up a super important point, which is to do things your way. Because we have been taught by society that there's certain ways of doing things. And you're an entrepreneur, you've been an entrepreneur your entire life. And maybe for those that have been entrepreneurs, this is the way you do it. This are the steps, which now you're just like baloney
Right.
to do it your own way. And I come from a corporate background, which that's what I do. You get the job, you start climbing the corporate ladder, and then what do? You're at a point where it's like, uh, I can keep climbing, but I don't want to. I just want to pivot and step away from that because my calling is something bigger, greater, and better than I ever imagined. But that's scary, and I have no idea how to do it. And the invitation for women to come into the expansion room is for that, to allow you to expand, to grow, to be unapologetically you and talk about it and be vulnerable about it and know that you're not going to be judged. You're not going to be criticized. You're, in fact, going to be supported. because there's no one way to do life. There's only your way of doing it. And what I love about you and I coming together to do this is that we come from completely different backgrounds and we have a very solid foundation to support women in this journey in whatever phase you are, whether you're stepping into entrepreneurship, whether you've been an entrepreneur, whether you're still in corporate, but you know what? I have a bigger calling and it's leading me there, but I have no idea where to start. This is where you start. You start by going into the expansion room, joining our expansion program, because that is exactly what you're going to get. You're going to go into an exclusive room with women who are there to do and create life your way. No one else's but your own.
Absolutely. And because of the nature of this, and because we've walked through it together, we're limiting this to 9 women. We want it to be intimate. We want you to know you have someone on your side, you have someone on your team. And Criss and I will definitely be that. But also, I have no doubt that there will be at least one other woman that you'll click with that could be your ongoing person through a season of life like this. And we are also bringing in elements that we've used in our own relationship of understanding each other's human design, so that when we listen to your questions, when we listen to your stories, we're able to keep in mind who you are at your core. We're able to keep in mind your design, your life path number, your gifts, your mission. So this isn't what we would say to everyone. This is what we're saying to you based on what you've told us, who you are in front of us, and the charts that we will run with you, so that we can know who you are. Because this is also what happens at this time of life, is we sometimes feel shaky in it. It's almost like we forget, like we have reminded each other nonstop of, this is who you are at your core, these are your gifts, this is what you're born to do. Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot. It got a little blurry in there, got a little shaky. And there's wobble in this season, but every time we wobble and someone takes us by the shoulders and goes, this is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not beneath all of the titles and masks and identities and roles. This, when you strip all of that back, this is who you are. Now, how do you want this to look now? And you can make it any way you want. So we will drop the link. This is how it's going to be. We're going to have special pricing. This is us starting to talk about this. We're going to talk about this a lot. There's lots of things we're going to talk about.
A lot.
We're going to be very real about our journey. Yeah, because I think this is what's necessary. Um, Most women feel a lot of embarrassment and shame and guilt for everything they're experiencing. And so we're going to pull the curtain back and be like, this is what it was for us. So that you can go, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. But so this is the run up to the run up. So this is pre-sale. So I'm going to put a link. This is the best pricing that you can get for the expansion room. And then it will go up. I don't even remember what it is, 6 or 7 days. It's going to go up. It has a timer on the link.
Yes.
We um we want to do this because of how we've supported each other and what we've went through. And we're not through it. We're still walking this out. Like we're not here to say like, oh, we've arrived and figured it all out, nothing's scary anymore. Like I you know that's not the case.
And it'll never be the case, right? Because you're going to grow, you're going to expand, and then you're going to be a new version of yourself. And with that version of you comes other fears, other anxieties, other things. But this is really to kind of to kick you off, right? If you're in that transition phase right now that you're just like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling. I'm feeling all these things, in life, in my body, in business, in my career. I don't even know what to feel. I don't know. People don't relate to me. This is the space for you to come in, for you to be seen, for you to be heard, for you to be understood, and to know that you're going to walk in. And when you walk out, you're going to be a completely different person. And that will be when you allow yourself to go within and really do things your way and no one else's.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll keep the conversation going for now. We'll call it a day. Thank you so much for joining us. We're off to go make dinner for the families, I'm sure. Thank you,
Yeah.
Criss. All right.
All right. Talk
We'll
to you
see you
soon.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.